Welcome back to the Renaissance Judaism podcast. Today's podcast will be about how you can start a marketing strategy to build an independent business, independent living, or how you can market this strategy to companies or to a marketing strategy. If you're part of a marketing agency, you can come up with this plan, whether you be a manager or just an assistant. This is an opportunity for yourself to introduce a marketing strategy for less than £1,000. I would also, one caveat as well, this is advised by Robert Greene: try not to outshine the master. I don't know your work situation, I don't know who your bosses are, I don't know who your team members are, but some people don't enjoy your own brilliance, your own success, your own knowledge, your own wisdom. Some people in the personal development space, they just don't understand, or they'll just be like, they'll be negative towards you. That there is a blowback for putting forward ideas depending on the culture of the company. For example, I've worked at a place where it was incredibly inefficient and it wasn't going to change just due to the company culture, even if these changes, these strategies would have brought in more revenue, because the shareholders come first, not the organisation, not making more profits, but getting profits to the shareholders. This may sound a bit backwards, but I might cover this again on another podcast. Okay. To start off with, a simple marketing strategy, the equipment that you will need is a laptop or a PC, preferably one with a lot of memory as well. You want plenty of memory storage. A decent PC and even laptop, you're talking over £1,000, but because we want to keep this cheap, you're talking something like £350, maybe a bit above now just because of inflation, but something like that. You want a mic, this might cost about £25. You can get them varying from £25 to £35. You can spend more money as your profits start to improve, or is that you've got more market reach, you've got more customers, you've got more views on your sites, doing your podcast. If you get those like justified reasons, you can start investing more money in better and better equipment. There's no point starting a podcast, particularly if you're on your own or a website, investing all this money into developers if you haven't got the money, or risking everything on these kind of projects. Okay, now you have a website for the business membership for WordPress, the premium. That's £255 a year, so again, that's cheap. You get it for a full year, full 12 months. You renew it every 12 months. Now, for something like that, once you first open your website on WordPress, you've got to design your website. It has a feature on there, so you can design it on the WordPress platform. This might take you more than one attempt. So you've got your first version, your second version, just because you'll be new to all the software and equipment. It might sound complicated, but there's a content management system that does most of the work for you. Now, before you launch your WordPress website, you want to do about 20 pieces of writing before you actually launch the website. Just because if people go on your website, you want them to be aware that there is the product on there already. There's already images, already pictures, already some writing on there. There's something on there for the reader or the viewer to actually watch on your website. Now, once you start building your website, typically for something like this, you need like content writers, your copywriters, and people doing SEO. That usually all gets merged into one person. To develop a good blog article, depending on the quality, it could take a writer anywhere between writing one article every 45 minutes or two articles every 80 minutes. Depending on the quality, what they need to know, because you need knowledge as well to go along with it, you could be talking 2 articles a day. And that could take you between 6 to 8 hours, or at the very least 80 minutes. I make these distinctions just because in order to create good quality content, a lot of research go into it as well. Like, as you can see, if you look at this background now, you can see these bookshelves behind me. I'm just with the camera as well, so you can see. Okay, see all this knowledge goes into match my own personal knowledge to actually create these kind of podcasts, create the blog posts, and to be able to actually keep myself informed, up to date on the digital marketing strategies, personal development, history, politics, that kind of thing. It all takes knowledge that has to be built over time. So yeah, you have to be aware of this when you're writing your content. The more knowledge you have, the easier it is for you actually to write the blogs, to write the articles, and actually just the way you articulate your words as well. I'd also say when it comes to actually communicating for your podcast, that if you do decide to do through the podcast route, it'll take practice as well. If you speak clearly and collectively, and you're very measured with your words, you're not too fast, you're not too slow, but you keep it nice and a nice steady pace. Sometimes even a monotone might help as well, depending on what you're comfortable with or get used to. For myself, I make the mistake of sometimes speaking slightly too fast. It's best to keep the pace nice and steady, nice and slow. This is also because, if you speak clearly at a steady pace, you're more likely to be believed. For example, Bill Clinton said, "I had no sexual relations with that woman." See, Bill Clinton was believed, one, because of his charisma and the way that he spoke. See, people were visual. We get our information by visuals, looks. It's very superficial. It doesn't actually mean anything. But it's just, let me backtrack now. It does mean something because people believe it. If people believe it, even if it's false, it's true. If enough people believe it, it matters. So that's something to always be aware of. Now, as for your blog as well, and your podcast, because they both go together, because you put these together because you're trying to build market reach, and this is a very cheap and easy way to do it, depending on the nature of your product. If it's doing business to business, you might be better off doing business to business phone calls, cold calling, or doing professional email marketing campaigns, business to business. Not necessarily going through this podcast route or the blogging route, unless you're trying to promote a company website, like a travel website. Just different strategies, different techniques are suited to do different industries. For example, if you are a travel resort, blog site would be great because you can talk about the travel there. You can talk about the events that happen there. You can talk about the culture. You can keep adding stuff to the website, new content, same to the podcast as well. But again, with podcasting, there's also risk in there as well. There's plenty of benefit, but for a podcast, for a successful podcast, you need personality. If you're going to have a conversation with someone, there's got to be a back and forth. It's like tennis or badminton or anything revolving balls. It requires mutual cooperation. It requires like a dance. The perfect example would be the Joe Rogan experience. With Joe Rogan, you have him there on a guest. He knows how to tailor his personality to each guest. For example, somebody like Jordan Peterson or Gad Saad, the approach of bringing out the whiskey bottles, bringing out the cannabis, that might not work with somebody like that. But if there's somebody who's like a UFC fighter, or somebody who's like a comedian, somebody who's like, will happily have a drink, have a coke, not coke, I mean cocaine, no. Cannabis, that's it. Who likes to snort cannabis or whatever you do with it, then that's the things with different podcasts have different strategies how to communicate with people, and all there is experimentation. Now, once you've got your podcast up and running, you've got your blog up and running, you want to start creating content. You want to create, I would say, for your first podcast and for your first blog, if possible, depending on your time constraints, you're going to make at least one piece of content each week. This is just like if you're working full time, this is just to get you started. But ideally, you're going to try to produce something every single day if possible. Just because you create content when you're first starting, the algorithms won't know who you are. You won't have any audience, people won't know who you are. So it's something you got to keep on building. See, with Google at the moment, as far as I know, I think it's between the first 2 or 3 months it takes before your content actually starts to register on Google Analytics. Just because it takes some time to register as well. And that your initial blogs, your initial podcasts probably aren't going to register. And most podcasts don't make it past the 20th episode. So if you're consistent and keep on going, if you keep on going, then you're going to actually beat the competition. Sorry about that. It's just that got a sneeze. Okay, so as I said, it's a very cheap. This at the moment is a very cheap strategy, and it's effective. Just look at stuff like Rogan. Look at like Tim Pool. Tim Pool. He started off as a just using aerial drones and putting like videos on YouTube, and now he owns his own business. Now his own macro business that actually growing into a proper journalist company. Same with companies like Ben Shapiro, the Ben Shapiro show, and then there's the comment section as well, all part of the Daily Wire, if I've got that name correctly, which started off as just a small podcast, just 5 people talking, and it just grew over time. So again, another example. Also, the blog, the podcast, it can reach international audience as well, so you can actually expand your market reach so you get more customers. So if you're a resort, again, you attract more and more people. As time passes, after a 12 months period, if you have the time, if you're writing 10 articles a week for your blog posts, you're using SEO as well. SEO, I recommend at the moment, you type in Pearl Lemon Marketing Agency or just Pearl Lemon. There's actually a course on there just on YouTube what they've done. It's free, anybody can go on it. It goes through actually how to actually write SEO content. It just tells you. So if you type that in, you'll be actually finding out how to do it. All you got to do for your paragraphs, for your lines, you want to write 3 lines, full stop. Don't go past 3 lines. Next one, do some more content, no full stop. You don't want big chunky paragraphs over 250 words. You want it to be spaced out. I think it's about 10-20 characters, something like that, so no more than 3 lines for each paragraph. And as for your keywords, you got to choose your keywords for what is trending as well. So let's say that someone types in marketing. Marketing is too broad of a term, so do marketing, SEO, marketing, digital marketing. So those kind of keywords, you want to try and really narrow it down and put those keywords into your blog post, your article. For about 1,000 words, it's usually between 5 to 6 keywords. It's more, obviously, the bigger your paragraphs is, the bigger your writing is. So if it's 1,000 words, it gets more and more. I recommend also getting the Yoast plugin. The Yoast plugin, it tells you if you've got any problems with your SEO, it tells you what you need to do. Do you add more words in, add more keywords in? It also gives you the feature to put in your product description as well. So I recommend getting the Yoast plugin. I also recommend that you watch the Neil Patel video because he gives recommendations on other plugins, like the plugin so you connect to the Google Analytics, so you can see how your podcast is trending, how your website is trending, and also your Google Console as well, so if there's any problems. It gives you more information about your website. And also for your podcast, put that on YouTube, put that on Rumble, put that on Anchor as well. Do the different subsidiaries and put your podcast on those platforms, just so you can expand your market reach. Just getting more and more people. So this is a very easy way, a very cheap way to actually expand your market, get more customers, and generate more revenue from the comfort of your home or from your computer. Now, a way you could also get staff as well, without paying for them, is actually to hire temps, hire interns for like a month or two. Have them doing between 1 to 12, about 5 to 10 blogs a week. Add them into your content strategy, so you're getting more and more content out there. The more content you create, make away SEO, the higher your Google rankings is going to be. Another strategy is Skyscraper Content. With Skyscraper Content, what you do is like, you can use stuff like Uber Suggest or Google Trends. You can find out what is trending, what's popular at the moment. So, for example, if it's the war in Ukraine, if it was like, another example a few months back was when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. That was trending, so if you write about that, you'll start to trend as well because you're speaking of other content. What you want to do is, because it's called Skyscraper Content, because again it's trending very high on the analytics as well, because people are talking about it, people are writing about it. So what you do, you want to piggyback from those trends and write similar content on your blog, but don't plagiarize. You gotta do it totally separate. Okay, I think that covers everything at the moment for this simple marketing strategy. All I can suggest is that you get started as soon as you can if you're interested in pursuing this, or you can actually propose this to your boss. Just because it's a very simple strategy, it just requires consistency. Consistency is the name of the game. You want to write 5 to 7 blog posts a week, or do 5 to 7 videos a week, whichever is most easiest and most convenient for yourself. You want to start using Facebook, Instagram to promote your product or services, because at the moment Facebook is free, Instagram is free. Start using them. Also LinkedIn as well, if your product relates to LinkedIn. If you're putting forward like professional strategies, or you want to promote yourself on that platform, I strongly recommend you use it. Okay, thanks for listening to today's podcast. Don't forget to follow me on LinkedIn, and also the links to my podcast on Anchor and Spotify is also available below. Don't forget to subscribe. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Have a good night.